friends out there in YouTube land. I'm Robert Ham with Robert Ham Photography, and today we're going to be talking about a really cool camera, the Lomo'Instant. That's this camera right here. Guys, you know how it goes. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I need your help building the channel, and the best way to do that is to show your support. Recently, I got into instant photography, and it was something that I really should have gotten into a lot earlier, specifically with the Fujifilm Mini 90. However, today we're going to be talking about another camera that I've purchased, which is a lot of fun just as well, and we're going to talk about its picture quality and capabilities. Not really going to do a compare and contrast because I'm going to leave that to a completely another video. What we have here is the Lomo'Instant from Lomography, and this is a very cool camera. It's nice. It's got a good solid build. It's very chunky. It's plastic. Of course, the majority of the instant camera bodies will be plastic, and the lens is plastic as well. And there's some interesting things about that. First of all, when you pick it up and you hold the camera itself, it's very easy to hold. I like the chunky clunkiness of it, and I actually like this retro kind of minimalistic styling. Focusing is easily done by this focus lever right here, and switching up apertures or exposure compensation is pretty simple. There's one thing I will talk about right up front. Image quality from this camera is much different than image quality from the Instax Mini 90, and that has nothing to do with the film. It has everything to do with the lens. Lomo, when they made this, they made the lens out of a different kind of material, and they also made the lens with an aperture that's much larger than the actual aperture that you see. The actual outside of the aperture is pretty wide. It's almost the entirety of the lens. However, they've included small discs that they consider to be exposure compensation, that as you switch from +1 or +2 to -1 or -2, it switches a diaphragm that does not actually open and close like an aperture would, but it's small circles on an aperture wheel. The reason that that's important is because light leak comes in, and you can see that on the images. Now that's great for an emotive type of photography, but it won't work very well for production work where you need to have more control. What you do get is slight vignetting, specifically at the smaller apertures. When you're at the wider apertures, the vignetting is not very much at all. So indoors, things like that, you won't see too much vignetting. However, the smaller apertures, what would be f32, you will see quite a bit of vignetting. Another interesting thing about this camera is that the actual controls say automatic, but it's not exactly the case. This camera has an aperture range selectable from what they consider to be automatic at f16. And this is important because if we're using the Sunny 16 rule outside, we would need 16 1/800th of a second on our shutter speed in ISO 800 film. Well, there is no 800th of a second shutter speed. There's only 1/125th. So using the Sunny 16 rule, in order to get a good exposure outdoors, we'd have to go down 2 stops from 800 to 500, from 500 to 1/250th, and this camera itself can't even do 1/250th, so we need to go down once again to 1/125th as its fastest shutter speed. In order to achieve that, we now have to do something with the aperture, which means we've got to bump it up. We've got to go from f16 to f22, from f22 to f32, and that would be -2 for your exposure compensation. Problem here is very simple. That's not going to be enough to cut it. We need another stop because we lost a stop. So we're about 2/3 of a stop over. So when you're outdoors, you will generally be a little bit overexposed on a bright sunlit day. However, once you get into a slightly overcast day or a sunny day with clouds and there's some shade, you're going to be in a perfect range. The camera also only has 2 shutter speeds, bulb and 1/125th of a second. So when you're outdoors shooting, you're going to need to shoot on 1/125th of a second and then adjust your exposure compensation. That's cool. There is a little bit of writing down here that can help a new photographer get with it. But this camera definitely demonstrates Lomography's #1 principle, and that is that photos should be fun, they shouldn't have any rules, and break all the rules. In fact, being a Lomographer kind of buys into a lifestyle. At least they want to brand that lifestyle, and by which they've got some really, really interesting looking cameras. They've done a good job. However, this camera right here is actually kind of advanced for what you would want to give someone for point and shoot. I mean, you got to think a lot about your settings. So if you're new to photography, this may not actually be the camera for you unless you have someone that can help you. The actual Lomo'Instant Automat, the step up from here, is where you're going to have quite a bit more helpful features, mainly because you're going to have an expanded shutter speed range, anywhere from 2 seconds all the way up to 1/250th of a second. The camera will select that automatically, and you're going to have your same controls for exposure compensation. That's great. Plus, you're going to have a little bit better aperture range, and those additional speeds of shutters is actually more important than an aperture range. Is this a good camera? Without a doubt, this is an excellent camera. I enjoyed shooting with it. My daughter and I had a good time. My son enjoyed shooting with it. We all went out and it was a lot of fun. And this is something that we will continue to photograph with. However, because they didn't use an optical grade polycarbonate like you would find in your glasses, you can tell that it's kind of more of a playful thing, more of a creative thing in a way, because the lens itself adds characteristics that wouldn't be there in production work but are really cool for effects in emotive work. So I like that. Whether or not you should buy it depends on the type of photography you're trying to accomplish. If you're looking for something fun and moody, then this is an excellent choice. If you want something that's going to provide a little bit more professional results, the Instant Automat, the one step up from here, probably would be your case. It would also give a little bit more of a point and shoot kind of aesthetic and feel, which makes it easier to entry when you're a new photographer just starting out. I would suggest a couple of things. No matter what you do, use the flash. Make sure that the flash is on, especially when you're stopping down the aperture, mainly because as you stop down the aperture, you get more vignetting, and that's going to create shadows definitely around the corners, and you're going to want the flash to go ahead and kind of bring back some of the detail that will be lost in the shadows. The device itself actually comes with a lot of cool stuff. It comes with some cards, it comes with some color gels, comes with some instructions and some examples. So yeah, that's neat. Plus, Lomography was smart. They went ahead and added additional lens add-ons for this camera. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been my review and first look at the Instant by Lomography. It's a great little camera. I think you should pick one up, especially if you're trying to get into instant photography. It's a great entry into it. However, there are some alternatives. You can definitely pick up the Mini 8, which the styling does not appeal to me at all, but will give you a better point and shoot mode than this, and they're in the same price range. So, it's the ball's in your court. Which would you like? Hey, I'd like to know what you think. Leave your comments down below, and as always, keep shooting, my friends.